I was just going to say, was the pinnacle moment that you mentioned, was that the darkest moment in abstract history?
It was a very worrying time, but I think it was only worrying for a short period, because when we sat down and had the meeting and everybody realised this thing. But the highlight, of course, was that Steve Mason bought Pinnacle, and we all just re-signed with Steve, because we'd all had dealings with Windsong with him, and his company were brilliant payers, and that's what we needed to be reassured. I knew I had a catalogue through New Model Army, 3 Johns and stuff, that I knew I'd be able to pay Cots back, because they were continuous sellers, and New Model Army were on that. And of course, the other big saviour that a lot of people forget was the CD came in.
Yeah.
You've got to remember, in the middle of the 80s, it was all vinyl.
Yeah.
And suddenly AIM can see, and we could resell our whole catalogue again. Okay, it cost them, £5 a CD to make or whatever, but it completely opened up the market again, and all our back catalogue could be reissued. And not only for the indies, for the majors, the whole business was relaunched, and we got our back. So that was another big bonus that came along at a time when the money was really tight. So yeah, it was dark, but it didn't last for too long. We just got on with it. What else could I do? A major wasn't going to give me a job, and I didn't want to be managing a band, because
did you ever think about leaving the music industry?
No, never.
You were committed to it from...
Yeah, I mean, I just, it was what I wanted to do, and if I would have ended up doing something in it, even if it was, being a roadie or something. But probably not a roadie, because that's a pretty tough life.
Yes,
yeah. But I might have managed. I mean, I've managed a couple of acts and got them major deals and things, and didn't make me much money, but that's the way it was. I was committed to it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about some of the other independent record labels. Were any in particular that you took inspiration from, that you felt really closely allied to?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I was closely allied to, but I mean, it's really weird now looking back on it. There's Alan McGee, who's probably one of the most famous independent label managers of all time. He used to ring me up and say, "Edward, can I book the 3 Johns to play at the 3 Johns pub in Islington?"
I remember that.
And it was the joke that the 3 Johns were playing at the 3 Johns. Yeah. And Alan McGee used to ring up and do that. And of course, then and we'd go down, and Jesus and Mary Chain were supporting them and this sort of thing. And I seem to, I mean, it's one of the biggest mistakes I ever made, but I remember Alan saying, do you want to do something together? But his financial and costings of things were just completely out of my league. And it went on to prove that Creation Records, although it was successful, was a very costly business. But of course, he's one of the legends of the independent scene, and I just think it's funny looking back now that that little setup was how it started,
And looking back over Abstract, if you had to pick out, say, 5 records, not necessarily the best records, but the 5 records you released that mean most to you.
You're asking me to remember my own catalogue.
Yes, sorry.
Right. Well, I think Death of a European by the 3 Johns was one of the highlights.
Yeah.
No question, Spend the Night was a highlight from the Cool Notes. I think 48 Crash by the Gym Slips with John Walters at Radio 1 singing, and Chris Lycett singing and the backing vocals. That was a highlight. Luke Grew was a good record. Amrita was a very good record. So those have been some of my highlights in those sort of things. And I like the Janitors and all those sort of bands that we did singles with. And we put a band called Drill, which was just the most awesome, powerful stuff. And it just, you couldn't listen to it, but it gave you a buzz. It just vibrated in you. It was just absolutely in your face.
I mean, you also had, I remember you had some of the bands like Done Lying Down, who were kind of,
once again,
in keeping with the kind of...
Exactly, and once again, Done Lying Down were on the cusp of doing something, and Jeremy decided he didn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. We were putting a lot into that. We were getting radio play, and
I remember you did it as a double album. Yeah. You bought, you were able to buy a double CD.
And it was, and we had, we were having, the other buzz that people forget now is all the Radio 1 sessions with Kid Jensen and Janice Long and John Peel. We'd had bands all that, and the buzz of those sessions being done. Yeah. It was completely different in the 80s and mid 90s. We had all that access to, you got support from those nighttime shows, and when you're doing it, you're out there and doing it in the bands. It is a buzz. You do get a buzz, and so those sort of things. So I did a radio sessions album, New Model Army, all their sessions that I did on, I licensed that from the Beeb and things. Yeah. So there were all those things going on. So It is different now. It is very different now.
And if there's one you'd like to scrub from history, scrub from the catalogue?
Oh, that's a difficult one. That is difficult. I don't know. I don't think I've got anything. You can't regret what you've done. You know.
No.
You know. You do each one. You make a choice and you have a go with it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You made that decision, and you know. There's not been any one that I've regretted to the extent that that I should never ever have done it. So I've enjoyed the thing I put out, and disappointed maybe a fortnight later or whatever. But.
And similarly, would you have changed anything you've done in terms of the way you've run the business, in terms of the way you've run the label?
No, the only thing I might have changed is that I've had opportunities to work with some bigger acts, and that needed more finance. And I think had I been a little bit more less idealistic, if you want to call it that, I might have looked for cooperation deals. I'm not saying with majors necessarily, but with some of the bigger independents.
Yes.
But I think you do feel a bit sort of I am doing it, and I'm this and I'm that. But there have been some opportunities.
Any you'd care to?
No, because they didn't go on to doing anything big time. But there have been 2 or 3 opportunities where, if someone had come in with me, we might have had a bigger success with it. And I just turned it down, didn't even do it. Right. So it's things like that. So if that's a regret, that's a regret. But I'm still here, still doing it, and I've got another label that's very, very successful. We have an office in America and everything now, so it's gone on to be. We're still there. We're still there. We're still rocking and rolling, as they say.
Indeed, you are. Well, thank you very much
Pleasure.
for coming in.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you.
Take care. All the best.
And thank you for watching Cherry Red TV. So please do tune in again. We're trying to get in some of the names behind the the great and the good, the independent labels of the late 70s and the early 80s. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.